Aging is supposed to mean slowing down. Less travel, less challenge, less adventure. But what if that wasn't true? What if turning 80 didn't mean retreating, but reinventing? In California, an 82-year-old woman straps on a virtual reality headset every week, leading seniors on global journeys without ever leaving her living room. Across the country, a 78-year-old retired engineer spends his mornings designing mechanical puzzles, cutting wood, and 3D printing parts. Not to mention, mastering software tools most people ignore. 2 lives, 2 stories, 1 truth. Curiosity doesn't age. Breaking the myths of aging and isolation. Aging has long been framed as a story of decline. We picture it as a slow unraveling of abilities. Mobility fades, social circles shrink, and the world gradually feels smaller, like a map folding in on itself. This isn't just perception, it's backed by data. According to the National Institute on Aging, more than 25% of adults over the age of 65 experiences social isolation. And loneliness? It's not a trivial discomfort. Research links it to a dramatically higher risk of dementia, heart disease, and depression. In other words, isolation can be as damaging as a chronic illness. Yet, there's another side to this story, one often overlooked. The human brain possesses an astonishing capability: neuroplasticity. This means that even in later decades, the brain is not a static organ, doomed to decline. It can adapt, it can rewire, it can form new pathways, learn new skills, and even recover lost functions. But here's the catch. It doesn't happen by accident. This transformation requires fuel, in the form of stimulation, novelty, engagement, and above all, connection. Without these elements, the narrative of an inevitable decline becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The less we engage, the faster the fade. But introduce challenge and curiosity, the story changes. People can, and do, transform. A spark of purpose, a new skill, a meaningful social tie. These can rewrite the trajectory of aging. And that's where our 2 stories begin. Stories that defy the traditional script. Stories of older adults who refused to shrink their worlds and instead expanded them through creativity, innovation, and unexpected strategies. The VR Explorer. Her name is Margaret. At 82, she faced a problem most of us dread. Arthritis had stolen much of her mobility. Simple walks were painful. The thought of long flights, crowded airports, and cobblestone streets was out of the question. Those bucket list trips? They felt like dreams, locked behind glass. I used to love traveling, she says, eyes lighting up at the memory. My husband and I went everywhere: Paris, Beijing, Rome. After he passed, and with my health, I thought those days were gone forever, mentions Margaret. Then, one birthday changed everything. Her grandson walked in with an unexpected gift, a virtual reality headset. At first, Margaret laughed. I didn't even know what to do with it, she admits. But curiosity won. The first time she slipped it on, her breath caught. Suddenly, she was standing in the middle of a shimmering Venice canal. Gondolas glided past in silence. Water lapped against ancient stone. The light, the colors, it all felt startlingly real. I cried, Margaret recalls softly. I thought, I'm here again. I thought I'd never see it like this. That was the spark. Soon, she wasn't just exploring VR, she was sharing it. Every Thursday afternoon, Margaret logs in to host a virtual travel session for seniors across the country. She narrates their journeys through digital landscapes, weaving personal memories, cultural tidbits, and bits of history. From the towering arches of Rome's Colosseum to the kaleidoscopic corals of the Great Barrier Reef, she takes them places they thought they'd never see again. She calls it her VR travel club, and for dozens of older adults, it's become more than a pastime. It's a passport to possibility. The puzzle architect, meet Harold. At 78, his mornings begin not with a TV or newspapers, but at a worn wooden workbench in his garage. The surface is a beautiful mess, wood shavings scattered like confetti, small screws glinting in the light, and the faint hum of a 3D printer in the background. This is his workshop, his sanctuary. Here, Harold builds puzzles. Not the paper kind, not crosswords or Sudoku. These are mechanical puzzles, intricate 3-dimensional objects that twist, lock, and slide in ways that tease the mind. Each one hides a solution, waiting to be discovered. A retired engineer, Harold craved something more than passive entertainment after leaving his career. I didn't want to just watch TV, he says with a grin. I wanted to solve problems, to keep building. So he started simple, crafting puzzles from scrap wood. But soon, simple wasn't enough. He challenged himself to design more complex structures. That meant learning new skills. He dove into computer-aided design software tutorials. Late at night, teaching himself digital design, he experimented with 3D printing, adjusting tolerances and learning how materials behave under stress. Every new design pushed him further. Each puzzle forces me to learn something, Harold explains, and that's what I love. Today, his creations don't just sit on a shelf. Harold sells them online, but the real reward? Giving them away. He donates dozens to local schools, where kids pick them up, turn them over, and feel the same spark he does. The puzzles are my way of passing curiosity forward, he says, and they keep me curious too. Curiosity as medicine, Margaret's VR headset, Harold's wooden puzzles. Two very different tools, but beneath the surface, they share the same principle. Curiosity. Curiosity is more than a fleeting emotion. It's a biological force. For the brain, curiosity is like medicine. It doesn't just entertain, it rewires. When we chase something new, the brain lights up in response. Dopamine levels rise, motivation sharpens, neural pathways grow stronger, or form entirely new connections. This isn't theory. Research confirms that curiosity-driven learning strengthens memory, enhances problem-solving, and slows cognitive decline. Margaret could have focused on everything arthritis had taken from her. Harold could have surrendered to the idea that life after engineering meant quiet routines, but instead, they asked a powerful question. What can I still explore? That single shift from limitation to possibility transformed their worlds. For Margaret, it was strapping on a headset and standing in a digital Venice, heart racing with wonder. For Harold, it was sketching puzzle designs late into the night, learning design software when most people his age were learning remote controls. These acts were not minute. They were radical choices, to stay engaged, to stay alive in every sense of the word. Curiosity doesn't erase aging, but it rewrites its script. It reframes the narrative from decline to discovery. And when curiosity becomes habit, it becomes protection, a buffer against isolation, apathy, and even disease. The takeaway? Curiosity isn't just for the young. It's for anyone who wants to keep learning, growing, and living fully, no matter the decade. Laughter, purpose, and longevity. Margaret's Travel Club isn't really about pixels or headsets. It's about people. It's about the laughter that erupts when someone virtually falls into a Venetian canal, or the collective gasp when a whale swims past in an underwater reef. When we're in VR, we laugh together, we gasp together, we share memories, she says. I don't feel alone anymore. That's the real magic, not the technology, but the connection it enables. Seniors who once sat alone in quiet living rooms now log into a weekly ritual of shared wonder. They're not just watching a screen, they're immersed in experiences, guided by someone who understands that storytelling is a bridge. For Margaret, these sessions are more than virtual tours. They're lifelines to community. Harold's puzzles tell a similar story. They're not about wood or plastic, or even engineering precision. They're about joy. The kind that sparks when a child's brow furrows in concentration, then lights up in triumph. Teachers borrow Harold's creations to teach problem solving and logic in ways textbooks can't. And Harold? He gets something just as vital, purpose. It keeps me alive, he admits quietly, knowing someone else is smiling because of something I built. Purpose and connection aren't just nice to have in later life. They're essential for emotional health. They stave off loneliness, combat depression, and restore a sense of identity when the world tries to shrink. Technology and craftsmanship were the tools, but the advantage, entirely human. Reinvention at any age. Both of these stories reveal a powerful truth. Aging doesn't erase identity, it reshapes it. It doesn't close the book, it offers a new chapter, and in that chapter lies reinvention. Margaret didn't cling to the traveler she once was. Instead, she transformed herself into something new, a VR guide, a curator of experiences for others who long to explore. She turned technology into a passport and isolation into connection. Her reinvention didn't erase her love of travel, it amplified it, giving it purpose. Harold's story follows the same arc. When engineering ended, he could have let that skill set fade into memory. Instead, he translated decades of problem solving into something playful, tactile, and deeply human. He became the puzzle architect, a designer whose creations sparked curiosity in classrooms and living rooms alike. His work isn't just about objects, it's about passing on the joy of discovery. Society often frames aging as a wall, a series of can'ts and won'ts. You can't learn that. You won't adapt to this. But the reality is far more radical. Age can be a launchpad for creativity, curiosity, and growth, if we allow it. Reinvention isn't limited to the young. It's the birthright of anyone willing to ask, what's next for me? Margaret and Harold didn't just adapt to change, they authored it. Their stories remind us that aging isn't about holding on to what was, it's about imagining what could be and daring to build it. How VR and puzzles boost memory and focus. Why does this work? Why do VR adventures and handcrafted puzzles create such powerful changes in later life? Scientists studying aging and the brain point to 3 critical factors, each rooted in how the mind thrives on stimulation and connection. Neuroplasticity. For decades, researchers believed that brain development plateaued in early adulthood. But the truth is far more optimistic. The brain can form new connections, even in our later years. This phenomenon, called neuroplasticity, means that when we learn new skills, like mastering VR controls or teaching ourselves computer-aided design software, we activate multiple regions of the brain. Visual processing, memory, coordination, and problem-solving all light up. These activities keep neural pathways flexible and resilient, reducing the risk of cognitive decline. Social stimulation. Humans are wired for connection. Isolation isn't just lonely, it's harmful, linked to higher risks of dementia, depression, and even heart disease. Margaret's VR Travel Club demonstrates the antidote. It's not just sightseeing, it's storytelling, laughter, shared discovery. When we interact, neurotransmitters like oxytocin and dopamine surge, reinforcing emotional health and mental sharpness. Studies consistently show that seniors with strong social ties live longer, healthier lives. Cognitive challenge. Then there's the mental workout. Harold's intricate puzzles demand more than patience. They require spatial reasoning, creativity, and persistence. These are the exact challenges that cognitive scientists recommend to protect and strengthen executive function in aging brains. The act of struggling through a problem and finally solving it is like lifting weights for the mind. It's not about avoiding age, Harold reflects with a smile. It's about exercising it. From hobby to impact. The results are already clear, and they speak louder than theory. Margaret's Travel Club, which began as a small experiment with 3 curious seniors, has blossomed into a thriving community of 20. Word spread quickly. Now local community centers are reaching out, asking if she can bring her VR journeys to their residents. For Margaret, what started as a headset on her living room table has become a lifeline for dozens of people craving connection. Harold's story is just as compelling. His puzzles, once personal projects scattered across his workbench, now live in classrooms across the city. Teachers rave about the impact. Students who once tuned out during math lessons are now leaning in, eager to crack the code, to twist and turn their way to victory. Logic, patience, and creativity are no longer abstract concepts. They're tangible, something they can hold in their hands. And yet, the real power lies in the potential. Imagine VR programs built specifically for seniors, experiences that blend geography with memory therapy, storytelling with cognitive training. Imagine digital adventures that transport users to their childhood streets, sparking recollections and conversations long thought lost. Now picture puzzle building workshops, where retirees like Harold share decades of engineering wisdom with younger generations. Bridging a gap that technology often widens. These sessions wouldn't just teach mechanics, they'd teach resilience, problem solving, and the value of persistence. Margaret and Harold aren't outliers, they're early adopters, prototypes of possibility. Their stories remind us that aging doesn't have to mean retreating from life. With the right tools and the right mindset, it can mean expansion, growth, and reinvention. The question isn't whether this works. The question is how far we're willing to take it. Legacy in action. At its core, both stories share a deeper truth. They're about legacy, not the kind etched on a plaque or measured in bank accounts, but the kind that ripples outward, changing lives in quiet, profound ways. Margaret isn't just revisiting old memories through VR. She's guiding others into new ones. Every Thursday, she brings a circle of seniors together, transforming isolation into laughter, wonder, and shared experience. For many of them, she's not just a tour guide. She's proof that life can still hold surprises. Harold's legacy is equally tangible. His puzzles aren't just objects, they're invitations. They challenge young minds to think differently, to wrestle with complexity, to persist when the first attempt fails. Every time a child twists a puzzle and feels that flash of triumph, Harold's curiosity lives on in someone else. These stories dismantle the myth that legacy belongs only to those with fame or fortune. True legacy isn't passive, it's active. It's what happens when someone takes the tools in front of them, whether that's a VR headset, a scrap of wood, or a piece of software, and uses them to spark growth in others. Margaret and Harold prove that legacy isn't tied to age, it's tied to action. Each time they share their skills, their passion, their time, they plant seeds that outlive them. Legacy isn't what you leave behind when life ends. It's what you create while you're still here. The future of aging. So what comes next? For Margaret, the vision stretches far beyond a headset and a weekly VR session. She dreams of turning her travel club into a community-wide program, partnering with museums, cultural centers, and even universities to create immersive, senior-guided VR tours. Imagine history classes where students don headsets and explore Venice or the Great Wall with a guide who's walked those streets in real life. Harold's ambitions are no smaller. His next step? Designing even more complex puzzles, ones that don't just challenge but teach. He envisions partnerships with STEM programs across the country, bringing hands-on problem-solving to classrooms where attention spans often compete with screens. For Harold, every puzzle is more than a pastime. It's a bridge between generations. But beyond Margaret and Harold, the horizon is bigger still. What if we stopped framing aging as decline and started seeing it as a frontier for innovation? What if society embraced seniors not as passive recipients of care, but as active creators, guides, and mentors? Picture a world filled with VR explorers, puzzle architects, citizen scientists, and lifelong learners. The tools are already here. Virtual reality, 3D printing, open source learning platforms, maker spaces. What's missing isn't technology. It's imagination, support, and systems that amplify these possibilities. Because the question isn't whether older adults can adapt. Margaret and Harold have answered that. The question is, will society empower this reinvention or let it remain the exception? Margaret's VR headset and Harold's puzzles. Two separate paths, one shared truth. Aging is not the end of curiosity. It's the beginning of a new kind of adventure. So here's the challenge for all of us. If you had to reinvent yourself at 82, what tool, passion, or challenge would you choose? Let us know your answer in the comments. If you enjoy stories of real people rewriting the script of aging, like this video and share with a friend. Thanks for watching. Stay blessed and stay curious.